welcome to Integrate. We are your hosts. I am Racio Han Laurente.
We are going to ask different people with different jobs how do they use polynomials in their lives. To answer the question, what is the importance of studying
To
polynomials?
start off, we have here Mateo Leris Ayed, who works as a civil engineer.
Thank you to Integrate for having me today.
Today, Matea. Now, to answer the question, how do you use polynomials in your
Well,
job?
my answer to that question is that in my works, we use polynomials to design roads, buildings, and other structures.
Wow, so polynomials are actually used to design the things you guys build.
Yes.
With that answer, Matea. Now, moving on to Isabel Agatha Gonzalez, who works as a nurse.
Thank you, Integrate, for having me here.
It is our pleasure to have you here today, Isabel. Now, what is your answer to the question? How do you use polynomials in your job?
Well, we nurses use multiplying polynomials when we are figuring out how much medication to give to someone with a given weight and metabolism.
You guys needed polynomials to calculate how much medication you need to give people.
Well, I'm glad I taught you guys something new today.
Well, thank you for that wonderful answer, Isabel. Moving on to Squall Cruz, who works as a astronomer.
Thank you, Integers, for having me here.
To have you here today, Squall. Now, to answer the question, how do you use polynomials in
We astronomers use polynomials to help in finding new stars and planets and calculating their distance from Earth, their temperature, and other features.
Well, it means like polynomials has a lot of uses in your line of work.
Polynomials does have a lot of uses in my line of work, for sure.
answer, Squall? Let's move on to Sharon Bernal, who works as a chemist.
Thank you, Integrate, for having me here.
It's our pleasure to have you here today, Sharon. Now, what is your answer to the question, how do you use polynomials in your job?
Well, as chemists, we use scientific formulas, including property equations that feature polynomial expressions.
Use polynomials often?
Well, as a matter of fact, polynomials come up often in chemistry.
Wow, thank you for that answer, Sharon. Let's move on to Sean Michael Sahagun, who works as a mechanical engineer.
Thank you, Integrate, for having me here today.
Today, Sean. Now, to answer the question, how do you use polynomials in your job?
Well, as a mechanical engineer, we use polynomials to research and design engines and machines.
Wow, I never knew mechanical engineers use polynomials.
Well, now you know that.
Now, moving on to Brian Tyler Olaes, who works as an aerospace engineer.
Thank you, Integrate, for having me here today.
It is our pleasure to have you on our show today, Brian. Now, what is your answer to the question, how do you use polynomials in your job?
Well, we aerospace engineers may use polynomials to determine acceleration of a rocket or jet.
We knew that polynomials could determine the acceleration of a rocket or a jet.
Well, I'm glad I could teach you guys something new today.
For our final guest for today, we have Jen Damian Toribio, who works as a math teacher to answer the final question of what is importance of studying polynomials.
To have you here today, Daniel. Now, we need you to finally answer the question we've all been waiting for. What is the importance of studying polynomials based off your own idea and what the previous people said?
Well, my answer to that question would be that polynomials are an important part of the language of mathematics and algebra. They are used in nearly every field of mathematics to express numbers as a result of mathematical operations.
Polynomials are also building blocks in other types of mathematical expressions, such as rational expression.
Many mathematical processes that are done in everyday life can be interpreted as polynomials. Summing the cost of items on a grocery bill can be interpreted as a polynomial.
Calculating the distance traveled of a vehicle or object can be interpreted as polynomial. Calculating perimeter, area, and volume of geometric figures can be interpreted as polynomials. These are just some of many applications of polynomials. Polynomials can also be used in different fields of work.
Wow, that is a very great answer, Daniel. Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to be on the show.
Statements, our show, and
Again, these are your hosts. I am Racion Laurente,
Leones.
signing off.